Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about supply chain attacks. Supply chain attacks attack vendors, and if a company you're working for is working with a vendor that's been compromised, this can negatively impact that company and many others. We'll also go over the two types of attacks related to supply chain attacks. So let's begin. The definition and examples of supply chain attacks. Now, I think I gave you a brief overview of what a supply chain attack is, but imagine if, let's say, a cloud service provider or an HVAC system or even a company that sells paper clips somehow gains access to your network in any fashion, some kind of vendor fashion, and your systems are just not the best when it comes to security, either through software updates or hardware component updates to the vendor. These things could introduce malware that would allow them to access the vendor's networks, which can then in turn access your network. I'll give an example. The SolarWinds attacks. This is when hackers hacked into the SolarWinds and put the malware in the software update. This affected major companies and governments. Or the Target attack in 2013. This is much more interesting. They targeted the HVAC system. The HVAC system is your air conditioning, but somehow they had access to networks inside Target, and when they were compromised, Target got compromised. That was a very unique and clever way of getting around, a lot of security. No one's going to think air conditioning is going to get you a data breach, but in this case, it did. Now we'll talk about cloud-based versus on-premise attacks. Cloud-based attacks. Cloud service providers like AWS or something like that, they will have a lot of clients. A lot of people utilize their same cloud-based systems. If that gets attacked remotely and that gets compromised, every single company that is using that cloud service provider, okay, is now completely compromised. Maybe completely compromised, or maybe it's partially compromised. It's still really, really bad, and it leads to, if not tens, hundreds of companies, if not hundreds, thousands of companies becoming compromised. It may lead to data breaches, or it could be dealt with. It really depends on who's working there and how effective they are. On-premise attacks are a little different. Rather than attacking cloud-based server systems, they go into the company itself and attack their internal systems and hardware. This could be going into a desktop and putting a malware in there, and then that spreads into that company. And this could be a vendor, or it could be your company, but it could be a vendor. And if you're transitioning from that vendor's one of their networks into another network, and if that network is compromised, then your company becomes compromised because that specific network was compromised in an internal on-premise attack. Now let's go to exam practice. These questions may be on the test, so please pay attention. Question 1. What is a supply chain attack? We went over this in quite a bit of detail, so I hope you get this right. A, an attack where the hackers target suppliers or service providers to gain access to a larger organization's network. B, an attack that uses brute force methods to crack passwords. C, an attack on a website that steals customer information directly from users. Or D, a type of denial of service attack that floods a network with traffic. I'll give you a second. Answer is A, an attack where hackers target suppliers or service providers to gain access to a larger organization's network. Now remember, a supply chain usually comes in like logistics. Think of it like this: a train of supplies going into your company. If one of them gets attacked, and it goes into your company becomes infected. It becomes compromised. It's not something that happens in your company. It happens going into your company. Question 2. Which of the following is a key difference between cloud-based and on-premise attacks? A, on-premise attacks always involve physical access to servers, while cloud-based attacks can be performed remotely. B, cloud-based attacks cannot compromise sensitive data, while on-premise attacks can. C, on-premise attacks are always more sophisticated than cloud-based attacks. Or D, cloud-based attacks require less knowledge of security systems than on-premise attacks. I'll give you a second. The answer is A. On-premise attacks always involve physical access to servers, while cloud-based attacks can be performed remotely. Remember, that's the difference, breaking into a building versus doing it, outside. Thank you for joining me in this video of supply chain attacks. In the next video, we'll go over more of this module, and I'll see you in the next video.